Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a high-stakes biological thriller that's actually playing out inside your brain every single day. We're looking at the mystery of memory and sleep. Oh, whodunit?
We all walk around assuming our memories are just this permanent record, like a reliable video camera perfectly documenting our lives. But the reality? It's way more complex and, frankly, a lot more suspenseful. Every single piece of information you encounter is fighting a desperate battle for survival, and the odds are totally stacked against it. We've all experienced that sudden, terrifying blank. You're right in the middle of a sentence, you know exactly what you want to say, but a crucial piece of information just vanishes right when you need it most. So where exactly does it go? Does it just evaporate into thin air, or is it locked away in some vault you just can't reach? We're going to play neural detectives today, because this isn't just a minor annoyance. It's actually our very first clue in understanding just how fragile the human brain really is.
Now, science actually has a name for this frustrating cognitive hostage situation. It's called the tip-of-the-tongue phenomenon. Way back in 1966, researchers named Brown and McNeil started studying this intensely. What they found is that in this state, your brain hasn't completely lost the file. Instead, the retrieval pathway is just temporarily jammed. You might remember the first letter, maybe how many syllables the word has, or even words that sound kind of similar, but the exact target is just sitting there, right out of reach. It's wild because it proves that possessing a memory and actually being able to access that memory are two entirely different things. For any memory to survive, it has to successfully navigate a really precarious three-step journey. And if it fails at literally any point along the way, it is gone forever. It starts out in sensory memory. These are the raw, immediate flashes of what you see, hear, or touch. Now, if you actually pay attention to it, it moves into short-term memory. But here's the catch. Short-term memory is highly unstable. It only lasts anywhere from half an hour to maybe a single day. The ultimate goal, the absolute safe house, is long-term memory, where information can actually be retained for days, years, or even your whole lifetime. But getting there, that pathway is fraught with danger, and very few sensory inputs actually make it to step 3. So the real question becomes, who or what is intercepting our memories before they can make it to long-term storage? I mean, if our brains are constantly gathering all this intelligence, why on earth do we lose so much of it? We have to look at the internal forces that are actively sabotaging this really delicate transition process. Let's line up the primary suspects and see exactly what's stealing our retention. All right, our very first suspects are actually our own emotions. They act like these unpredictable double agents that can either fiercely protect your memories or completely dismantle your cognitive processing. Positive emotions are generally fantastic. They boost your attention and focus, making you highly receptive to learning. But you gotta watch out, because they can also create false memories, making you remember things a little too optimistically. Negative emotions, on the other hand, they are brutal. They actively disrupt your explicit memory by triggering stress circuits right in the hippocampus, which is essentially the brain's memory center. Think about it. If you're stressed out, your brain is way too busy just trying to survive to even bother filing away the details of what you're reading or hearing. Then we have another major culprit, cognitive overload. It's kind of like trying to pour a whole gallon of water into a tiny shot glass. When you flood the brain with poorly segmented information, you literally jam up the whole system. A classic example we see in educational research is presenting the exact same information in multiple redundant ways, like reading really dense text on a screen while someone is speaking that exact same text out loud to you. Instead of reinforcing the memory like you think it would, it actually overwhelms your primary processing capabilities. The result? Your brain just drops the data completely. But the absolute most dangerous threat to your memory isn't actually what happens during the day. It's what happens when you refuse to shut your eyes at night. Sleep deprivation is the ultimate villain of the story. You can study perfectly, you can manage all your stress, and completely avoid cognitive overload, but if you skip sleep, you're basically leaving the doors to the memory vault wide open and letting the day's hard-earned data just blow away in the wind. Let's look at this staggering number, 30%. Research shows that just a few hours of staying awake when you really should be sleeping causes a massive 30% drop in something called ERK phosphorylation in the hippocampus. Now, you absolutely do not need to be a neurobiologist to understand why this is terrifying. ERK phosphorylation is a vital chemical process that creates the cellular plasticity your brain needs to literally build and store new memories. So by forcing yourself to stay awake, you are chemically freezing your brain's abilities. But don't panic just yet. Just when it seems like all our daily experiences are totally doomed to fade away, our brain initiates this highly classified covert rescue mission the very second we fall asleep.
We tend to think of sleep as a time when the brain just completely shuts down, right? But it's actually the most critical period of active memory management. This is when the real heavy lifting happens in the shadows, literally rescuing the fragile fragments of your day from the absolute brink of deletion.
It's a literal race against the clock, shifting from aggressively gathering data to desperately locking it all down. Let's break down the timeline. When you're awake, you are in acquisition mode, basically just grabbing every piece of information you can. Then, when you take brief rests, say a quick coffee break, your brain enters a preliminary sorting phase, putting together brief pauses to link concepts. But the real magic, that happens during slow wave sleep. This is full-on storage mode, where the brain actively consolidates those fragile short-term memories and hardwires them deep into the neocortex for long-term survival. During this nighttime shift, the brain pulls off a brilliant biological plot twist. See, when you're awake, your brain is flooded with acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that keeps you super alert. But during slow-wave sleep, the brain intentionally drops its acetylcholine levels off a cliff. Why would it do that? Because high levels of this chemical actually block memory replay. By suddenly dropping the acetylcholine, the hippocampus is finally given the all-clear to safely replay and store the day's event, completely free from any outside interference. So, who exactly is orchestrating this whole replay process? Allow me to introduce the unsung heroes of our story, sharp wave ripples. Operating totally in the shadows of sleep, and even firing off during those brief waking rests we talked about, these ripples are intense, rapid bursts of electrical activity in the hippocampus. You can think of them as the judge and jury of your mind. They rapidly replay the events of the day, sorting through that massive pile of sensory data and actively deciding what gets a permanent home in your neocortex and what just gets erased forever to make room for tomorrow. So now that you have this top secret briefing on exactly how your brain's internal machinery operates, how can you use this? How can you actually hack the system to guarantee your crucial memories survive the night and aren't just thrown out by those sharp-wave ripples? Well, it requires moving away from just passive observation and stepping into active tactical planning in your everyday life. By deploying some very specific survival tactics, you can actively protect your short-term memory from getting hijacked by stress or cognitive overload. First off, prioritize meaningful learning. Your brain is going to discard rote memorization way faster than concepts that actually make deep sense to you. Second, take frequent quiet breaks. This is huge because it allows those sharp wave ripples to start their preliminary sorting while you're still completely awake. Third, segment complex information so you can stop cognitive overload dead in its tracks. And finally, use a technique called chunking. By grouping smaller pieces of information together into larger concepts, you can actually expand your working memory capacity from the standard 3 or 4 units all the way up to 5 or 6. It is a total game changer. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder as your head hits the pillow tonight. Your brain is about to perform a ruthless audit of your entire day. It's going to lower its chemical shields, fire up those electrical ripples, and make permanent, irreversible decisions about who you are and what you know. But now you have the intelligence to stack the deck in your favor. So tell me, what memories will your brain choose to save tonight, and which will it